we have taught our people how to build churches. We have not taught them how to take the kingdom. We've focused on getting people to heaven when they die. We haven't focused on bringing heaven to earth the way Jesus prayed. We thought we were going into all the world to preach the gospel when we went into all the geography. We not only have to go into all the geography, we have to go into the mountains. We have to invade the systems with the power of the gospel of the kingdom. It includes salvation, but it's greater than that. It is the reign of Jesus Christ over every area of earth. In education, in families, in government, in media, in the arts, in all the church, and in all the business.
Well, good day, friends. My name is Graham Power, and I bring you greetings from Cape Town, South Africa. I'm a Christian businessman, and our primary business interests are in civil engineering, highway construction, and real estate developments. And this includes the construction of many thousands of homes per year for the poor. I grew up in a home with 5 siblings and an amazing, hardworking parents who ensured that we had the basic needs. And my eldest 2 siblings, however, had to go out to work at the age of 15 so that us younger 3 could be able to complete our high schooling. I started my career as a trainee construction surveyor at the age of 18 and progressed to be involved in quantity surveying and finally project management. It was an exciting and interesting 10 years, doing whatever it took to climb the ladder within the company, and I had a privilege to be managing some large construction projects at a pretty young age. Then in 1983, virtually on my 28th birthday, my wife Lauren and I ventured out to start Power Construction. It was a tough and a difficult time, leaving the security of a good job, selling a home and 2 small plots of land we owned, and with the help and encouragement of my father-in-law, we purchased a small farm which we used as collateral for the business. We lived in the old farmhouse, and our first office was a converted stable. We also built accommodation for the small team of staff. But at that time, my prime focus was creating wealth and chasing success. And we were not afraid to work hard and often spend 14 hours a day and working sometimes 7 days a week, doing whatever it took in order to ensure that the business grew at a rapid rate. Up to that stage in my life, I had little interest in spirituality or faith and seldom attended church other than weddings or funerals. But all that changed radically at the age of 43. This was 15 years after the start of the business. But I would not want to bore you with my voice, so please allow me to share a short recording of my personal testimony, and then we'll come back and chat some more.
This is the story of an ordinary man surrendering his life to God. This is the story of Graham Power.
Cape Town, South Africa has always been my home. This is my country, and I'm proud to be an African. Growing up, I lived on Oxford Street in a modest home. We had limited resources, and that meant that my older siblings had to leave school at a young age so that us younger 3 were able to complete our high schooling. Music and laughter was the glue that held our family together, and it was here that I learned the value of hard work and perseverance. Determined to give my children more than I had, I set out to become successful. And I guess I soon achieved much of this. In fact, I climbed the corporate ladder pretty rapidly, and the desire for more just kept growing. More cars, more farms, more boats, and a comfortable and luxurious lifestyle. My company soon became one of the largest privately owned construction companies in Southern Africa. Some people would say that I was successful, and I thought that I'd fulfilled my reason for living. Money was no longer a huge concern. I could buy most of what I wanted, well, I guess almost everything. My family, of course, refused to be bought. I searched for meaning and hungered for this inner peace. But no matter what I tried and how I grew the business, that eluded me. At the age of 43, I made a public commitment to Christ And soon after this, I had a personal encounter with God, alone, late at night in my study. That was when I realized that the success I'd been chasing after had brought me no inner peace. And after I turned off the light in my study that evening and quietly moved down the hall back to my bedroom, I knew that I was a changed person, and little could I have dreamt or imagined the new direction that God would take my life in. God had ambushed me, I guess, and it was during my second encounter with God a while later that He gave me a clear vision. In fact, it was so clear that I call it an instruction, and it was so large that it would consume my life. The instruction was to hire the stadium and invite Christians from all the different denominations to join together for a day of repentance and prayer. Even though there were many obstacles and frustrations, the vision became a reality. And on the 21st of March 2001, every seat in this stadium was filled. Together, we became a united church in the city of Cape Town. I would have been pretty content to stop right there, but God had clearly shown how this vision would roll out across Africa and across the globe.
Let the whole earth hear His voice. The vision that God had given Graham became a reality when this prayer movement grew from one stadium in Cape Town to the whole world. Over the next 10 years, this prayer movement grew to 220 countries around the globe, making it the largest prayer gathering in all recorded history.
You know, regardless of my many flaws and imperfections, I am still amazed and humbled that God was able to use this willingness to grow His global movement. The words of 2 Chronicles 7:14 have become the driving force of my life. And God showed that there would be 3 waves crossing over Africa and the globe. Yes, the first one, that we were to humble ourselves and pray. And the second involves turning from our wicked ways. And this second one has become the inception point of what we call the Unashamedly Ethical movement.
The third wave, which is yet to come, will be healing of our land. Unashamedly Ethical is a challenge to men and women who live and work in a stream of dirty politics, underhanded business, corruption, and collusion, to make a pledge, and then to stand firm and to turn the tide. The Unashamedly Ethical campaign has reached business and government leaders in over 100 countries. Together, they are forming communities of people committed to good values, ethics, and clean living.
We can only free Africa of systemic poverty if we can rid it of systemic corruption. This has changed the way I see my role in business, and subsequently our purpose at the Power Group has been amended. We now strive to improve the quality of life in Africa. And this is both simple and yet extremely complex. But I realize that it is only by God's grace and His mercy that we can dream of God restoring dignity to our continent, Africa. Today, my greatest joy is the joy of living in a restored and a renewed family, where my wife, children, and grandchildren live in harmony. And as we love and laugh together, we worship Jesus Christ. This is because I believe, as in Psalm 133, that where there's unity, God will command a blessing. And I thank God for His hand of blessing over my family, over our beautiful country, and I believe that God's vision for Africa and the globe will be fulfilled in your and my lifetime.
Today, God is using Graham to talk to kings and presidents, captains of commerce and industry. Graham's heart's desires is that wherever he goes, he carries the light of Christ and extends the kingdom of God.
And so, friends, in February 1999, I committed my life, my family and the business to Christ. A radical shift for me and our family. It caused me to do a 180-degree turn in many of the things I had done in the past, many of which I'm not very proud of. It was at that critical midlife phase in my life, age of 43, that Lauren and I were hungry to learn more. We immediately did the Alpha course. We joined a regular Bible study group, and I had a one-on-one weekly morning session with a biblical mentor who assisted me with many of the questions I had as a young Christian. I came to realize that no amount of success in business could compensate for the failure in the family, and that my hard work and not spending time with my wife and family, not supporting my kids alongside the sport field, spending quality time with them, could so easily lead to a divorce, or my kids rejecting me, rebelling. Could be things like drugs or being influenced by a negative circle of friends. I realized that I needed to be a role model to my family and to trust God to forgive me, to grant me wisdom and understanding. And one of the scriptures which just reached out and really grabbed hold of me by the throat, so to say, was Deuteronomy 8 verse 17 and 18, which says, "You may say to yourself, my power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth for me. But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth." And this challenge was a shock to me, as this so clearly described my mindset, my strength, my hands, my hours I'm putting in. It was all about me, and thanks to me and my determination that I have the material things I have. Well, I quickly came to realize that the talents which God has entrusted to me, my health, my family, and everything nearest and dearest to me could be taken away in a split second. I could have an accident, I could lose my life, my health, I could, God forbid, lose my wife or one of my children, or have a key blowout in the business side. And I became aware of many people who had experienced one or some of these calamities. And I also came to see that when people had lost these things nearest and dearest to them, many of them were on their knees calling to God for help. In mid-July of the year 2000, while on holiday in Spain with Lauren, we spent 3 weeks there, I was woken at 4 o'clock in the morning with a challenge to call together Christians from all denominations to gather at the 50,000-seater Newlands Rugby Stadium for a day of repentance and prayer. This was such a compelling and detailed dream that I say it was not so much a dream or a vision, but in fact it was an instruction. It was so clear, and I understood that it would start in Cape Town and progressively roll out over South Africa, then Africa, and a while later, 2 years to be exact, in a second more detailed vision, God further elaborated how it would roll out through Africa and then across all the nations around the world. From that first gathering in March 2001 in Cape Town, up to the point where we had 56 African nations and islands together in 2004, in which we saw 22 million people joining across the entire continent of Africa in large and small gatherings, some in hidden places in the desert of the North African nations, where Bibles and Christian gatherings are in fact illegal. But this was an amazing time in which we linked from Cape to Cairo, from West to East Africa, praying a united prayer over the Africa continent. And this annual gathering grew to the pinnacle where in 2010, over 400 million Christians across 220 nations around the world pray together on Pentecost Sunday. And it is really humbling to note that this continues each year as nations continue to unite in large and small gatherings on Pentecost Sunday. A lot of these details you're welcome to look at the website, which will be on the screen now. Now back to 1999 and the business front. I had some extremely challenging decisions and corrections to make after my conversion. At this time of my spiritual commitment, I had some major challenges and skeletons which I needed to face. About 10 years earlier, I'd become part of the construction industry club, who had gradually been manipulating tenders and bids for work, along with the largest and most prominent companies in our city. And what started out around 1988 as a meeting to discuss industry challenges quickly became a clandestine club, in which the projects offered by government or large private clients were being prearranged as to whom would do the work, how the cover pricing would be fixed, and at a later stage even how we would escalate the value of these tenders so that loser fees would be paid to those who provided the cover prices. In mid-1999, we were having our annual strategic planning with our leadership team, and we had invited an outside speaker who happened to be a professor of one of the key universities in Cape Town to address us. And this elderly gentleman used the topic ethics in business. So on the first day of our 2-day retreat, he spent 2 hours challenging us with some various stories and about honesty in business. And amongst other, he quoted Proverbs 11 verse 1, "The Lord abhors dishonest scales, but accurate weights are his delight." Well, my day was ruined. I remember little else of that entire day as I mulled over the past 10 years, the collusion, the corruption, which had become part of our industry and certainly my role and part within that. That night I lay awake for many hours struggling to sleep, and eventually I opened my Bible and started just reading Proverbs 11:1, and then I kept reading on. And lo and behold, the next few pages were filled with similar challenges. When the righteous prosper, the city rejoices. He who seeks good finds goodwill. Dishonest money dwindles away, but he who gathers money little by little makes it grow. The eyes of the Lord are everywhere, keeping watch on the wicked and the good. A greedy man brings trouble to his family, but he who hates bribes will live. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and your plans will succeed. Before his downfall, a man's heart is proud, but humility comes before honor. And better a poor man whose walk is blameless than a fool whose lips are perverse. And the final straw for me in the early hours of that morning was Proverbs 20, verse 17, which says, "Food gained by fraud tastes sweet to a man, but he ends up with a mouth full of gravel." Well, as a road builder, I literally choked on those words. So there I was, day 2 of our gathering. I confessed to our leadership team that most, if not all of us, knew and were part of this unethical dealings, and that we were doing this all to maximize profits. And it included manipulation of quantities and measurement, putting in inflated claims wherever extras requested on projects, paying minimal taxes wherever possible, and of course, the key issue, the tender manipulation and collusion. I quoted a few of these scriptures and remarked that we had some serious work to do to clean up our act. A few weeks later, we had the entire team together again to pursue this challenge, and on that day, I stated that we needed to commit doing all our business on an entirely honest and ethical basis, and that unless the team committed to this, I would be compelled to exit the company. Now, this was probably an unfair demand given that I held 80% of the stock or shares. Well, the team asked some key questions. Do you think we can survive if we do not continue to do this? Things like, everyone is doing it, and it is the key reason why we are able to make good profits. And the comment that really shook me was, "Graham, you taught us to do many of these things. Now you're telling us to stop it, and immediately." Well, I'm thankful to be able to confirm that an ethics committee was formed on that day with a mandate of to interrogate every one of our methods and actions, and that we were to list and address each of these issues in the shortest possible time. And the team were mandated to draft a code of ethics, and that code we still use till this day. Now I was faced with one of my most difficult tasks ever. I was to contact each of the 15 leaders in our industry in the city. These are the CEOs and the managing directors of this club, and to inform them that we would no longer be members, and that we would no longer be part of any clandestine negotiations or any form of tender manipulation or price fixing. It was tough. It was really rough. The verbal remarks, and especially the messages one got via others, was horrific. I was accused of being a Bible puncher, a hypocrite, a traitor, and many other words that I don't think it would be appropriate to use in this forum. This meant that whenever government or a client put out large tenders, which previously was managed or manipulated, now with us being part of that and not being part of this club, we were constantly being watched, where we were invited to tender, in which case the club would not be able to operate. Well, we managed to survive the onslaught. We managed to continue to grow regardless of the lack of these easy profits, and we were regularly being asked by key private clients to do their large projects without them calling for tenders as such. And this, I think, was due to the reputation of being honest, fair, and ethical in our dealings. We assumed that many, if not all of these companies continue with this manipulation whenever we were not in the mix. In October 2006, again at 4 a.m, I was woken with a tremendous electricity through my body. And over the next 3 hours, I had the most amazing experience with what I call a 3 waves vision. I clearly understood that God plans for there to be waves, 3 waves, which would roll out over Africa and the globe, starting from the southern tip of Africa. The first wave being a wave of prayer, as we had seen rolling out across Africa and around the world. The second wave being a wave of ethics, values, and clean living. And then would be wave 3, a positive tsunami. Now, it was difficult for me to comprehend the details of wave 3, but I understood it to be like an amazing transformation and revival, something extremely positive, like the world has never experienced before. The scripture, 2 Chronicles 7:14, something I wear on my arm every day, was so clear and a confirmation of what God planned. If my people, who are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, forgive their sin, and heal their land. Now the three clear steps: humility and prayer, turning from our wicked ways, our sin, and then God's promise that He would heal our land. I understood that we are being challenged to be unashamedly ethical in all of our daily dealings. Wave 1 was pretty clear, with prayer movements such as Global Day of Prayer and many others that were taking place around the world, challenging you and I to pray daily. Wave 2 was the new big challenge, and I clearly understood that there were three elements that we were to do. Number 1, to develop a pledge form which people would commit to. The second was that there was to develop an electronic database, a sort of yellow pages, where signed up members who had made the commitment would be able to link up with others, either to request a service. A small example of this would be if you or I were looking for a financial advisor, for an accountant, for a lawyer, or something close to home, like needing a plumber or electrician to work in our home. It would be easy for you or I to go online, to view the database in my or your city or area, to view the companies who signed up as members of Unashamedly Ethical, and to then get a quote from them to do the work. We could then be at peace that the company had committed to be ethical, that they would not steal while working in my or your home, they would not overcharge us, and if there were a latent defect, they would rectify the fault. And this brings me to the third aspect. There would be an ombudsperson in each region or nation of the world who would be the mediator if and when there were any disputes or complaints. And the ombudsperson is likely to be a retired judge, a barrister, advocate, or lawyer, and a dedicated Christian who would be part of a small panel who embraced the challenge and offered their services to the local Unashamedly Ethical leadership team. And so imagine if you were to go online on www.unashamedlyethical.com or join ue.net on the Google. You would be able to follow in a very quick 2-minute snapshot. You would be able to register yourself and or your organization to be unashamedly ethical. I'm convinced that 2 Chronicles 7:14 applies to my and your everyday life. If I will each day take some quiet time to humble myself and pray, that I will be ethical in all of what I do and say, and I believe that God will forgive my sin and He'll heal my land. That begins with me, my home, where I live, my work, and from there it will ripple out to other aspects of my life, my sports club, my circle of friends, my colleagues, and everyone I deal with will hopefully sense and experience the peace of God in my life. Well, friends, I would like to ask you to view the short Unashamedly Ethical video to see some of the exciting rollout of this challenge and what is happening right now around the world.
We live in a world that is fast-paced, interconnected, a world that is continually fighting to be on the cutting edge of development, technology, research, and strategic advancement. From San Francisco to Hong Kong, New York to Harare, Jakarta to Cape Town, we share in communication and connectivity. The smaller our world gets, the more we see corruption, collusion, and crime, destroying the hard-earned growth of honest, reliable corporations, citizens, and communities. As the turmoil increases, now is the time to stop. Stop and ask some hard, serious questions about our governments, our businesses, and even our lives. We are the people who can transform our nations.
Every time you and I turn on a television to watch a news report or we read a newspaper, it is covered with stories of corruption and collusion. It seems to be around us, amongst us, in our face every day.
Corruption is a worldwide problem. It's not just for one nation, it's for everybody. Everybody of us are always being a victim of corruption.
Corruption is what is ruining and derailing our nations all over the world, and certainly here in South Africa.
This is like a sick cancer that is eroding our society. If I think of a kind of a filthy, dirty stream that is flowing, And I believe that if I stand and you stand and the next person stands against this flow, we can make a difference. We can actually get this flow to turn.
Turning the tide requires a unified approach with a zero tolerance on any form of corruption. It requires an urgent commitment and faith that change is indeed possible.
Unashamedly Ethical is a major and significant mechanism and movement.
It invites all of us to make a personal choice and to make that choice concrete and to put our name out there as those who will be in the army against this scourge.
Unashamedly Ethical creates a blueprint, a guideline to fight this insidious enemy that targets the most vulnerable in communities around the world.
When you sign up for Unashamedly Ethical, you're committing to high ethics, high values, and clean living.
Unashamedly Ethical creates a community of like-minded people from every walk of life.
One of the greatest things that Unashamedly Ethical does, it provides a framework, but it also provides stories of inspiration that can help us keep going in what we're doing.
We're fighting corruption by telling people, showing people that we are the ones who have to start. We all have to make a decision, draw a line, and say, I'm not going to participate in corruption anymore.
And I encourage you, if you have not signed up, sign up, make that commitment, and equally important, make that commitment and walk with others.
When we band together and share good ideas and we encourage one another, then we have the opportunity to persevere. And perseverance leads to momentum, and momentum leads to real success.
We are inviting individuals and companies to make a pledge, sign a form, and then join the movement.
I challenge you, make a stand, sign this pledge form, be unashamedly ethical, do the right thing and do it right now. So finally, thank you for allowing me the time to share some of my own testimony of the intervention God brought about in my life, and thank you for considering the challenge He's placed before you and I to lead clean and ethical lives. I'm convinced that if you or I are doing things that are immoral, illegal and unethical, that it will be revealed one day, be it in a year, in 10 years, or even one day when we are on our deathbed. And the embarrassment and pain that it will cause at a later stage is not worth any great financial reward today. Corruption is, in my view, the greatest weapon of mass destruction facing the world today. And you and I, we will not see the world rid of systemic poverty unless we can see it rid of systemic corruption. Oh, and by the way, allow me to finish the story of the collusion and the tender rigging within our construction industry. The Soccer World Cup was held in South Africa in 2010. There were many stadia, roads and infrastructure that needed to be built, and many billions of dollars worth. And sadly, in February 2011, the front pages of the newspapers and all the media reports had the following headline: Top construction companies exposed for mass collusion. And there were 15 companies named. They'd all been found out, and all of the history and the dirty laundry came to the fore. Large fines have been imposed, and many of them are presently facing huge challenges. Many of the top leaders of those companies have been forced to resign as government looks to ban companies from the future tendering. And many clients are claiming paybacks for those inflated prices. That day in 2011, I sent an emotional email to all our staff, thanking God for His hand of blessing and protection over us, thanking all of them for their bold steps that we took to clean up our dealings, and thankfully we'd been saved the embarrassment and the hefty fines. Well, friends, my prayer is that God will hear your and my prayer, that He'll guide and direct your every step, that He'll grant you wisdom and favor, that you will take this vision and word seriously, and that you will do the right thing and do it right now. Sign up, become part of the Unashamedly Ethical Challenge. So I pray Psalm 121 over your life and family, and blessings, my friend. I thank you for your time.